Good evening, November 5th, November 9th, 2022. This is Mary Conley in Jacksonville, November 9th, 2022, at about 5:45. I um I spent the last few days going through the chest of drawers in the bedroom, my desk, bins of paper outside, bins and bins of paper, my parents' paper, my brother's paper, my father's paper, letters from Vietnam, old track and field, old high school things, photographs. And what I'm looking for is I have a pre-planned funeral expenses, and it was 14,000, about 600, 14,600 in 2017. It's now down to about 93, and it's $80.25 a month. Well, it came in my mind. I've saved up let's say about four grand. I've saved up in emergency fund, which is neither here nor there because it comes and goes, right? There's a life insurance my mom took out on me in the 70s, and it's worth $3,047. But I'm trying to document, I cannot find the policy, but I've paid the payments since my mom was deceased in 1998. It became my policy, and twice a year I pay like $27. And I've religiously paid it. I even put a transfer on death on it to my nephew, but whatever. So I called them, and they're going to send me something to have notarized. But I wanted to document my mom apparently liked this company because she had two or three of us on it during her life. Um, I found the statements that came from me twice a year. And of course, I can go back several years and find those statements. They come in the mail and says, okay, legal general, you're going to pay this, whatever. So I went through the shed and I found more documents. I found a business card. I found, the little, let's call it Metro Life, whatever. I'm just making up. Let's call it X Life. And I found several of hers and on and on. And I'm out there and I looked, and I haven't looked through this. So I had to do an internship at the University of North Florida to get my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And I was working full time at IRS. I had an apartment and I was in the Army Reserves. So once a month I had to do 2 days in the Army Reserves. And this is, if you remember from one of my earlier videos, I didn't tell very many people about the ride. Vicky Hogue knows, Debbie Hogue Vitale knows, and Jeannie Hogue, whatever her last name was, because I wonder sometimes now she might have been a stepsister or a half-sister or something. I don't know. She would have been the one that might have had some kind of relationship with him. And that's speculation because Debbie did give him the phone number, and I never knew. And it was, no, don't talk about it, whatever. And I never did. And my mom knew, my brother knew, they're deceased. Mrs. Davis knew, she's deceased. Mr. Davis probably knew, she's deceased. Mrs. Hogue knew, she's deceased. At IRS, towards the end of my career, I told some coworkers, their eyes get real big, like, oh, this is BS. I told some people at Safe at the TIAA stadium, and their eyes got big, and they said, it's like the devil. And I said, yeah, it is. It's like the devil. And I have my diary, and I sent it to a forensic analysis, and they can't do it. Debbie says don't obsess about something that happened. But I said in one of the tapes, I said Michael Kaufman, or I thought his name was Michael Kaufman. And sure enough, he's in here. But so far, this is the internship, which apparently, and I was tired. I keep complaining in there about tired. I'm so tired, because I was working full time. I had to drive about 18 or 19 miles to get out there, and 19 or 15 or 19 at night back from August to November of 1984. And I wrote everything. And I was 30 years old. I wasn't trying to get back in law enforcement, but I wanted to get my bachelor's. I did it for Professor Stanley Schwartz. And I don't know, he must have told me to do this. And I wrote everything about, their call cards. There was an accident on the turn road. I would enter the tickets. And, there was a lot of thing about parking because the students would have a decal. And if they parked in the wrong place, they were, get a ticket, and they had to appeal the ticket. And I talk about Mr. Kaufman and chewing tobaccos and Rideout and Carol and Anderson and Beck were some of the officers, and the Tammy Oliver and a lady named Mary S., and they were all police officers there, and they would, I don't know how many they had. I've made it up to here so far, and I know, and I'm thinking, well, the first part, I'm not going to sit there and divulge something. Officer Dixon, and then they had dormitories being built, and I think the governor came, and of course the person was injured on the road. There were things like drunk driving, people that would come on to try to break the vending machines to get food. people breaking into lockers and bicycles and the boathouse and disturbances where somebody was intoxicated. And this was the type of thing we would go along and check all the doors, the lab doors and everything. But anyway, so I'm writing everything down and say, well, maybe they don't like me, but I did this because that's what Stanley Schwartz said. And I go off on some of my reserve weekend, which is really not related. And usually it's night shift, and then weekends I would do this. I think I had to do maybe 20 hours a week for a long time. And then you had to do a paper afterwards. And you said, why didn't you go to JSO? I don't remember internship there, but even if they had it, my name was still probably mud. I wasn't looking to go in law. I just wanted to get my bachelor's degree that I'd worked on for so many years. But if I can find that night when I told him the story, that's evidence to me. Then I've proved the case if nobody else will come forward. Thank you. Like I said, I didn't tell very many people. Thank you. Bye-bye.